And we are back with Tom Hessel. Tom here is the owner of HQ Auto Associates. How to choose the right car. If you missed the first show that we talked at length, I said, Tom, we're doing a half-hour format now at times, and we do things we could go to a full another half hour.
Yeah.
I said, we're going to have to do another half hour. You've got so much information that people need. This is such an important industry that affects families and how they get to work and how they provide for their family and how they don't, some people, $2,000 or $3,000 is a lot of money.
It is.
They lose that kind of on a deal that went bad and had to do extra repairs and all that. I had 2 engines I put in a Toyota Supra back when I was a kid, and I had a little money. Everybody knows about the bad accident that I was in, and they settled for far less than I probably should. These days, I'm like, how did you get that much? But anyway, I got a little bit. Bought the Supra.
Yep.
And still have it in storage. But let's get into this as a matter of what we're going to do to talk about some of the more important things I want to talk about. We already talked about his reviews, great accolades there. Doesn't have like 5,000 reviews. Some of these places, like, are they just buying reviews? What's going on there?
Right.
But these are authentic. These are real people, and they're talking about it.
There'll be more.
But there's a lot there already. It's already brought him more business, and he's going to get a lot more. He's got a lot already, but he's got all 5s, and that's good too. What is the one thing, though, that really you feel sets your business apart from?
Just, I try to develop a personal relationship with people. I want them to trust me, and I have a genuine interest in people, which is something that's just me, and I think that helps me because if you try to be genuine and you're really not, it really comes out bad. You look like the used car salesman. And I want to treat people how I want to be treated. It's pretty simple, and keeping it simple is the best way to go about it. And I don't lie, because if you lie, you have to remember the story, and I'm getting too old to remember stories. So,
life is much easier if you just tell the truth and keep it simple. A couple of things we talked a little bit about.
And I just like people to feel good about the car that they bought. I want them to feel good when they walk away. Not only, it's great. I obviously want them to spread the word, but it's just a real simple philosophy. Grew up Catholic, I'm still Catholic, and I believe in Christianity, and treat people how you want to be treated. Second Amendment, or Second Commandment.
Second Amendment's a different
If everybody
thing,
followed the Second Commandment, we wouldn't need the Second Amendment.
That could be that's absolutely true. I want to share a little bit. We share here. Tom has a beautiful website, and so he's got some great work there. I'm going to put this on the wall here. But dreaming about your next car, take a look here. HQ. I'll put this up so you can see the address. It's at the bottom of our. Nice and short and to the point, but HQAutoSTL.com. And one of the things I was like, wow, can a small dealership, and I as a computer nerd, I know they make apps for all size business. The big guys, they're going to have a really great inventory.
Right, absolutely.
The way you can do that, but you've got one here on your website, and I actually put up on the other wall to have that already. And so you can see here, you can search and really get into what it is you need and look for, and find
you got the Carfax right there too as well. So
Carfax available.
It's free for people that can, and the Carfax is a great service because you can really get a better idea how the car was taken care of, what problems that it's had. When you look at a car with 150,000 miles on it, and the Carfax shows that the transmission fluid's been changed, brake fluid's been flushed, coolant's been serviced, car's been well serviced. And if it's had, like the Equinox, that V6 engine has a tendency to go through timing chains. So if you've had a timing chain kit put in it, well, that's done then. And cars they're built so much better today for the most part, with the exception of maybe the CVT transmission, which I don't care for, but that's primarily because the manufacturer doesn't make parts available. They're supposed to, but they don't. But that's another conversation for another show probably.
I start to get blown away here because Tom has so much information, knowing the details about the specific components that fail on certain models.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know any sales guys that would ever know that.
It becomes important to know that when you're buying them.
That's where he is the guy out there going to the auction here, and like I said, the auction. Talk a little bit more about that here, but the auction gives you so much more resource, and you will even do kind of a concierge. Individual, if you tell me what you're looking for, I'll go to the auction and find it for you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that for people. It's a little tricky because you could pick out a car you like, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it necessarily because you're bidding on it.
Right.
So you've got to work that out with the customer ahead of time. But yeah, but some people they like that approach, and I'm fine with it. And I charge a flat fee. Don't make much money on it, but I've made hopefully got a satisfied customer out of it. And it's another car to sell. So, but the auctions, so most dealer auctions, you're buying cars. I'm buying cars that came from new car dealers that people traded in, and some larger wholesalers, but mostly the new car dealers. So with COVID, that turned everything up on its ear a little bit, because all of a sudden the new car dealers didn't have any inventory because they didn't order their chips in time, so they couldn't put the cars. They couldn't build the cars because they didn't have the chips for the computers. So you had a little bitty chip keep a big car from getting built. So car dealers, new car franchise stores, had to rely on their used cars. So instead of keeping, new car dealers would keep a trade-in if it was a couple years old, maybe 3 years at the tops, maybe 50, 60,000 miles. Anything other than that, they're gonna take to the auction. Well, now, because their inventories were low on new cars, they kept the old cars, the trade-ins. I mean, you can go to Lou Fuse now or Bommarito and probably find a 2010, 2015 Honda, which you would never find before. And, they also, because they're vertically integrated, most of them have a body shop and a service shop. They do that work in-house, and they get a discount for it. So it's a little bit easier for them to clean them up, but it still costs a few bucks.
Sure.
So, and that changes with there's no plan for that. Every dealer is different. Depends on how well you get along with your service manager and your used car manager and your general manager or your body shop manager on what they're going to charge you, because they're still responsible for their part of the world, and that's service. If they think you're a jerk, they're probably not. You're probably going to pay what every other customer pays. But they can get a discount. I work on some of my stuff. Otherwise, I have a couple people that do repair work for me, and one of them's a retired shop owner, Sam. I won't mention his last name, but he does great work. And Gravel Auto Repair is another one that I'll put a plug in because Dan does a real good job. So,
well, yeah. So back to, when this whole buying a car thing affects, what's the average person keep a car for these days?
It really depends, but anywhere from I'm kind of shooting from the hip on this, but anywhere from 3 to 6 years, maybe 8 if it's a new car. And here's the crazy thing about it is during the pandemic, Denali, GMC Yukons were going for over $100,000.
Wow. And
they weren't, and dealers, shame on them, but they were taking the MSR, which is what the retail price is set. Yeah. They were adding 20% to it, 30%. Wow. And the banks were writing loans for them. Right. Because the banks knew that there was pretty much backed up. They knew the money was in the system because Federal Reserve was doling out money for all of us so we could have a party and buy cars and do things and keep the economy going. Now we're paying for it, but people get into 7 and 8 year loans, which is insane. Really you shouldn't get into a loan any more than 3 years tops. The shorter the term, the better, but then the payment gets too much and you can't afford it, so you go longer. Then it just becomes a payment every month for the rest of your life.
Right, yeah. How many people like to pay off their car?
Right.
And you can help people with a strategy, I guess, essentially to do that by saying, hey, here's a car that's a little bit older, but the cost is going to be dramatically less.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're not trying to win the Indy 500. You just need to get to work every day.
Right, exactly. Over the course of 3 or 4 years, a new car loses anywhere from 15 to 40% of their value. So that's a big chunk of change. And if depending on what your loan situation is, you can walk into a dealer and try to trade this thing in, and there's just no way you're going to do it because you owe too much on it, and you paid too much for it from the beginning. So, but people like the new car smell, but it's expensive. You can buy a car 2 or 3 years old, still under warranty, it's still nice, but you still have the new car smell for a lot less.
Yeah, that's essentially what I was fortunate to do. My car is about at 50,000, I believe. Do you know what a Nautilus off the top of your head has?
I don't know.
From the manufacturer?
I don't.
Might be 100, but I think it's 50. And but yeah,
Yeah.
why is there a discrepancy between a lot of these cars have 50, some 60, some, and that's a manufacturer's decision, I guess. They're
It
going,
is, yes,
we
it is.
understand that based on the way we built
Right.
this thing.
Correct.
Here's where we think
Correct.
it'll last.
You know, and the ironic thing though is if you look at like Consumer Reports, you know, even cars that they red flag or say that are bad cars, the percentage of cars that are built and sold, it's like 5%. That's small when you think about it.
5% that are
That are bad.
that have problems.
Yeah, that's a red flag. So you're really dealing with a really small portion of the market or the manufacturer, whatever particular brand or line that is. And you have some manufacturers that really do a good job of taking care of things if they know they got a problem. Hyundai had a problem with their engines out of their Alabama plant. For some reason, the blocks didn't get cleaned after they were machined, and there were shavings, metal shavings that left in the engine. And metal shavings is not good in an engine. Bearing surfaces don't like metal shavings. And we actually mistakenly bought a car that had the engine was broken. It had a rod bearing that was bad. And I was just livid. I'm thinking, great, you know, we're going to have to spend four or $5 grand to get this thing fixed. I did a little research, contacted Hyundai. They said, they asked me to give them this. They looked at the Carfax. You know, it had regular oil changes. They had extended the warranty to 115,000 miles. It had 110 on it. I took it out to Napleton Hyundai, and they put a new engine in for free.
All right,
So that's somebody. That's an example.
Well, and that's where I say ultimately, when you get down to this, you cannot be a scammy, smarmy business on this planet. Period.
No.
Whatever industry, whatever business it is, and last as long as these companies have lasted.
Right.
And so,
you know, car manufacturers are they're a tough egg. You know, they don't give up very easily on things. And there's, you know, the Pinto, with the gas tanks that blew up.
Wow.
You know, yeah, that. I'm a burn survivor, so it really plays in my heart. But and I believe it was a Malibu. Family was rear-ended by a drunk driver. The tank split. The car blew up. There were 6 kids in the car, or 5 kids in the car, and the driver. 3 of the kids got burned really bad. So in the ensuing litigation, the attorneys for the family caught General Motors rigging the test that they used to prove that there was a problem.
wow.
And then they found, and General Motors said that this didn't exist, but they found engineering correspondence that told management that this was a problem. What do you want to do? And they decided to roll the dice and say it would be too expensive to bring them back in and retrofit them or fix them. They rolled the dice, you know. So the jury awarded I think it was $4.9 billion to this family.
Wow.
Yeah.
I say this isn't something. This is all documented. Obviously,
Yeah,
you can
this
look
is
these up,
documented.
everybody.
Yeah,
this isn't
absolutely.
Tom trying to
No,
do anything other than
and
share
no,
some
and
of the things that
right,
goes
but
on in the industry.
It does, and you know, but you know, for the most part, you know, sometimes I think you know you leave well enough alone. If it works, don't break it. If it's fixed, don't fix it if it's not broke.
Yeah.
But they don't leave well enough alone, and they're trying to do things and make things better. And cars are much safer now. You know, you've got crumple zones that absorb the energy when you get hit. It's more expensive to repair the car, but it saves you. You know.
Yeah.
And there's so many safety devices now. The airbags, the side impact airbags are so important. You know, my daughter got hit in her Ford Fusion. It's a beautiful little car. She got hit on the side. Lady hit her so hard it ripped the door off the hinges on her side.
Wow.
But the side impact airbag saved her. You know, she walked away from it. You know, if that was a 20-year-old car, 30-year-old car, she'd probably been in the hospital with some broken bones.
Wow.
So,
As somebody who also we can touch on, but I was in an accident caused by a drunk driver who hit us. We were in a 1986 Monte Carlo.
Oh wow, yeah.
I guess if I'm recalling correctly.
Yep.
There's pictures of it. People will look at there, but that we share. I share my story a little bit and talk about it. Tom shared his story with me a little bit. Burn victim.
Yeah.
And went through something traumatic.
Yes.
But and without getting too much, I'll let you give as much detail as you want. I don't want to make it.
No,
but we both agreed that sometimes these most difficult situations are the things that really help to give you the perspective on life.
Absolutely.
That makes it.
Yeah.
So that we are here to make an impact and help people.
Yeah, and I was given last rites. You probably were as well, and I was burned in a natural gas explosion along with my new bride at the time. This was August 25th of 1996. But spent several months in the hospital, probably a year and a half recovery. As a matter of fact, ironically, where my lot is, it's not very far from where I grew up, which is where the explosion happened. It was at my father's house. And the house was vacant. We were going in to check on it. And I pulled the chain on the light fixture and the house blew up. And yeah, it was not a good day, but I'm fortunate to be here. And had the opportunity to be a stay-at-home dad for a bunch of years. So my daughters got older, and and so once all that happened, I decided I needed to do something. So I decided to go in the car business. So
Which you had a lot of experience with.
yeah, I had a sales and marketing background, and I had an automotive background, so it just seemed like a good fit. It's a tough business. A lot of guys out there doing it, but I think I'm sharp enough to overcome my shortcomings to
Right.
to make the business grow and to make it profitable and still maintain my my position at I want to be known for reliability and dependability of my vehicles. So, and if people are going to be treated right, and they've got a friend in the car business. So
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go another 12 minutes here, if we can fill this up. I'm going to do 2 full half hours here with Tom,
All right.
because he's got another. We've gone through. I have 15 questions, everybody. I'm honest about how we do our show. I've got 15 questions. We've gone through 1.5 shows now, and we're on question 8. So we got another 7 questions to go through in 15 minutes if we get through all of them. Not necessarily.
I'll try to shorten the answers.
No. I appreciate. I have to, as the show host, manage the show, right? And say,
Right.
when do I interject? When do I cut somebody off? When do I ask a question to get more information?
Sure.
Because I don't feel like they gave as much as they need to help people understand. But you really are a knowledgeable guy, and obviously studied tremendously the background, the history. And like I said, when you're talking about lawsuits and litigation
Yeah.
and issues and recalls and everything that I could not imagine another salesperson out there that knows that stuff out there.
Probably not. I've always been an information junkie, sort of. So
Well,
it
information is power. I talk about that. I
Yeah.
developed the analysis tool that one of Google's biggest partner at the time used across the entire company.
Yeah.
And it was because I wanted to dig in and understand more than anybody else. I wasn't trying to create the tool for everybody.
Right.
I was just trying to give myself more information.
Absolutely.
And I did the research and pulled the data and figured out where it went and how it calculated and converted and those kinds of things, everybody. That's another tip we got. I think Tom would back me on that one. And that is, make sure and study as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because if you're ever going to end up where you need to make a decision, you don't want to have to depend on someone else,
Right.
because you don't know for sure they're going to have done the homework or
Exactly.
disclose
they're-
everything as
Yeah,
necessary.
they're being completely honest. It seems like we move at such a fast pace today that there's things that people should take time on that they don't. One, doing the research on buying a car. 2, buying a car without driving it or even looking at it. I have people that want to negotiate over the phone with me on a car, and they haven't even come in and looked at it. I'm like, why do you want to negotiate? You don't even know if you're going to like it. And what can happen is somebody will do that, get in the car, not like it, and then they blame it on the dealer when it's really not the dealer's fault because they didn't come drive it. You know. So I really try to emphasize that with people. I try to educate them a little bit if I feel like they don't really understand what things are going to cost. Well, I got this much money. Yeah, you got this much money, but don't forget about insurance. There's repairs on it. How much you're going to drive it, gas mileage. There's
Maintenance,
maintenance, everything else.
Right.
So, and people become very appreciative of that. They really are.
Lots to go in here still. Tom is on the ball. I love it. How has technology changed the world? I mean, you've gone from where we were talking a little pregame in our 2.5 hour pregame, but we had a great discussion here, and it's cool when you have we're both in a position where we can take the time to do this, depending on our schedule, what we're doing here. But Tom, his background in marketing, but marketing so far back, that is to say, they didn't even have computers back then.
No, right. When I worked for J.D. Street Company, it's a petroleum products company, and was in sales and marketing, did some product development, but there was no digital marketing at that point.
Right.
So I left the business in '99 and jumped back in 2021, and it was just like a whole different landscape. It was foreign to me, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But the digital marketing, the ability for people to acquire information. really, and a lot of old school car guys will say, yeah, it really sucks now because you can't make the kind of money you used to make. Well, it's one thing making money, it's another thing gouging people, you know. But people need to do their research, look at the Carfax, look at any other information, take your time, drive the car, you know, kick the tires, feel the tires. And people don't do that. And some people don't know to do that. Younger kids today don't seem to have the desire to get their hands dirty and or understand the mechanics of how a car works or what it does and what they should do or don't do, you know. So that's a little bit of it as well, just a different culture. And the car loans the same way, you know what you're getting, and try to live within your means. We're in a society today where everybody buys on credit. You know, what's the payment? That's what people know. What's the payment? Not how much is it going to cost me? You know, let's buy a $30,000 car and get a loan for 5 years and, you know, pay $45,000 for the car. I mean, $15,000 is a lot of money to pay somebody.
Yeah, I have a little bit of background. When I knew the InBev thing was coming. I had some insight, did my research, and I had known that the InBev takeover was likely probably a year before it happened.
Right.
And so I started doing some research on my own to say, what are there opportunities? Ran into a friend, says, you can do financial services essentially as a part-time thing and refer people and we'll help you and you can make some money. So I went to work for a company I won't say publicly because it's not a big deal, but it's a well-known company, and did some research and found out. But I began to realize that most people, again, they get down to exactly what you're saying. Why would you buy a $40,000 car when your budget, when you can fit it in there, is 20, right, but just because they made the payment thick?
Yep.
And now you've got a depreciated piece
right.
of property
yep.
that you can't go off and sell.
No.
That's going to give you anything kind of the return.
Right. And
now you put yourself in such debt
yep.
that you can't buy the next car, you can't
right.
take care of the kids.
And guarantee that car's not going to be as much fun to wash when it's 4 years old and needs needs a few $100s worth of work as it did when it was new. So people have a hard time looking long term these days, I think. You know, it's a gratification. What can I get now? Instead of saving your money and waiting to buy that car with some money down, you know.
Well, again, we're talking about some of the ins and outs, some of the in-depth thought processes that should go on when contemplating spending 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 60.
Probably your second biggest purchase, than your home.
Right, absolutely.
Or maybe your kids in college.
I'll give you a shout out to Brian Klauser, who's been on the show a number of times. He's a auto body repair.
Yeah.
And does a great job. Look those guys up, Body Works. They are classy, and he talked about that. As a matter of you've got to have this, and you've got to get it fixed correctly too, because then if you're going to sell it, then there's
especially body work, body work, and you've really got to be careful because there's guys out there that are unscrupulous and they don't do a good job, you know, and so the work doesn't hold up, you know, and you want and I try to stay away from anything that has too much body damage, but I become a closet body paint guy, you know, and that really, I get into something I'm not skilled at, but I think I can do, and it takes me 3 times as long to do it, and that's my rabbit hole that I've got to be careful about doing because,
right.
You know, there's guys out there that's what they do, and they could do a much better job than I can, but the aftermarket industry is such that I go down to a store down on the hill and give them the paint coat of this car, and they can blend a can of paint in a spray can.
That matches perfectly.
Matches almost perfectly. Yeah. Yep. So now you think you can paint cars.
And the only reason it might not match absolutely perfectly is because the car that they're going to apply this to is faded a little bit.
It's faded a little bit, but you'd be surprised they get it really close. But let me tell you what, there's a lot to doing body work and trying to paint a car. A lot more to it than you think.
Oh yes, I've got Brian Klauser, like I said.
Yeah.
Boy, look at those guys and what they put together.
I've got a lot of respect for body men now. Not that I did before, but because it shows everything, you know, every little thing. So, but you know, it's worked out all right. You know, it's an experience. So,
and that's Real McCoy Auto Body Works, by the way. So, and Brian's been on. So we're gonna have him back here. He's been on twice already. He's gonna be on a third time coming up here. With that, tell me then. Obviously, people by now, if they've watched portions of what we're getting close to 2 hours, or a full hour of recording time, and what we tried to melt down from 2.5 hours of discussion before the show. How does somebody decide they want to work with you? What's the easiest way for somebody to say, Tom, I want to buy a car. You're my man.
Just call me up.
Hit that cell phone number. Is that your cell phone on the website, or was that?
No, that's my office number.
Okay.
My cell number is 314.
Okay, write this down, everybody.
791-9020.
I'm going to put the camera on you. Talk to me a little bit about what's the process. Tell them, and now what happens after they do this. And I'm going to write that number down. You said I'm going to change his title on the screen here live, everybody. Walk through that process. Somebody calls you. What happens after that?
No, well,
first, if you tell me that number, I'm going to write the number down. I'm going to
314 791
791
9020 9020. Yep.
And
So that's my cell.
This is my other phone. I would have had it. I had to have it in my other phone. I carry two phones, everybody. I know I'm weird, but there it is.
Yeah.
And let me do that. So talk to us about that process.
So really, it's just a matter of coming in and, hopefully you've looked at my website, otherwise you probably wouldn't be calling me. And there's something there that you like, or you've seen one of my ads, and come in. I try to keep it simple. Where I'm located at, there's a nice little couple-mile loop that people can drive, and it has a little bit of everything. And then it comes down to, do they want to try to finance, or are they going to buy it with cash? How much do I charge, or how much does the vehicle cost? And it depends too, if I gain their trust. And you can tell whether people do or don't trust you. And I mean, it's really, I try to keep it as simple as I can. I can finance if people need financing. I prefer people to use their own bank or go to a credit union because they give you better terms. But there are auto loan companies out there, and if you're a subprime kind of person, as far as credit's not that great, I can still get you in a car, but it's going to cost you. Sure. Because these guys, they know what the statistics are as far as repossessions go and credit scores, and they're not shy about charging you for that. They're for their potential risk. Yes,
well, I completely understand. At times in my life, I'm fortunate now I have pretty good credit, but back in the day, and who's going to co-sign with me? And I went to grandma.
Yes, of course.
Yep. I was so young that I didn't think I had credit, but I had a decent amount of money actually sitting in the bank from the settlement. But it's interesting how they make their decisions, and they know how it's going to break down. But with that, everybody, take a look. I did make an edit there, and because you guys are getting the secret inside info here. This is Tom's cell phone number now. And I know if he wanted to put that out there, but he said it on the show, so I made that edit.
It's fine.
But we've got his business number on the other title, which is right here. And there is, so you see that's 328, that's 314-328-2374. And then we've got right here, 314-791-9020. Tom, we've filled up now 2 entire half-hour shows.
Awesome.
And still more we should talk about.
Right.
But the other thing I always like, what's that favorite quote you got? Give me real quick your favorite quote.
Favorite quote is, if it is to be, it is up to me.
There you got it, everybody.
That's one of them. Now I'm going to draw blanks, but there's a couple movie quotes, but they're probably not ones that I want to probably air online or on the air, say on the air. But
and Tom is a soccer coach too.
Yes,
everybody.
Yep.
Down at Lutheran South.
Lutheran South and Car Shield.
All right, thanks everybody. Get up.